Hi. First off, I'd like to say that I don't think that there's a lot of practical tips out there for people who are trauma survivors. I think that there's some books, for example, from Homeless to Harvard, and they show that there's a way to survive it, but it kind of makes people feel like, well, that's that person, and I'm different, and I don't have the ability to go to Harvard. My life is different. Well, that's not true. We all have it within us to survive. So, first I'd like to explain the difference between the non-conscious mind and the conscious mind. So whether you're awake or asleep, your non-conscious mind is working, while your conscious mind is only working when you're awake. Your non-conscious memories have been building since you were born. And behaviors, actions, decisions, thoughts, and so on are driven by your non-conscious mind, which is about 95 to 99% of your brain. So that's a lot. So what I want to do is give you practical tips on how to deal with this and how to overcome trauma. So remember, your non-conscious mind is not bound by time and space. So memories, especially traumatic ones, are always there with you unless you've gone through the work and the process to heal them. So I think most people at one point have tried by doing this, by doing what society recommends, such as getting a therapist and a psychiatrist, and then when it doesn't work, they get frustrated and discouraged and are often turned off by the entire mental health system, rightfully so. So I'm not going to address what takes place after that occurs, because then people decide to self-medicate, and then the trauma just grows, and then they spiral, and I'm sure you can imagine what happens after that. So, excuse me. So for example, of how the mind works, let's say a word pops up, or a thought, or a memory, which can take place at a restaurant, together, or out with friends, just by viewing a social media post. Well, there's so many examples of how memories can pop up, and it can prompt a traumatic memory, because if you've never dealt with it. So say something as simple as like a door shutting loudly can cause a chain of memories that are pretty traumatic. So reading an article about bullying could bring up all kinds of memories from childhood, if that's your trauma, when someone has never worked through their experience again. So my point is that your default thought pattern is always going back to the trauma and the negative memories. So unfortunately, when these memories arise, many people push them back down into their subconscious, which then it goes back into then it comes back to their conscious, and they never deal with it. So they're still there. They don't go away unless you address them, and I want to teach you how to do that. So not only does it not go away, but it gets worse, because it's a seed inside of you that keeps growing, and the more you experience memories, so at the restaurant, the door opening loudly, the social media, the bullying, those seeds cause this trauma to grow. So there's a way to confront this trauma and the traumatic. And once you do this, remember that the traumatic memories, if they're very severe, because some are way more severe than others, it's recommended that only spending too much time on that is counterproductive. So it could be too much, too overwhelming. So deal with it for no more than 17 minutes per day. And when I say 17 minutes, it's not an arbitrary number. This is scientifically researched for the past 30 years. So there's a step-by-step process that I personally walk all of my patients through. which is based on by Caroline Leaf and her 5-step switch on the brain process, which you can actually download on Android and Apple, so that you stay on point daily if you need to. My previous video mentions this, but today I'm just focusing solely on trauma. So when you get that uneasy feeling, like we all do, that something's not right, but you can't quite figure it out, that's usually the trauma not being dealt with. So often this surfaces as anxiety, depression, worry, sadness, so on. So eventually and inevitably they explode, and you end up with the diagnoses of bipolar or major depression or borderline personality, PTSD. Now there's something CPTSD. So often people learn to compensate for their trauma and get by in life. So in other words, they learn to survive, but they're not living to their fullest capacity. And in my opinion, when someone's gone through, a lot of people's opinion, when someone has gone through so much trauma, they've been through enough. They need to start living. So this impacts their careers. It could impact their family, or maybe they can't get ahead in their career, but they have a loving family. I mean, there's just so many aspects of life that trauma could be blocking them from. And there's so many ways that this could affect people's lives. So now that I've given you the background, which is a super condensed version, I'll give you tips on working through the trauma. First, we need to observe our own thoughts. When our thoughts are unhealthy, we need to immediately change them by asking ourselves, is this thought good for me? Is this helping me? Is it healthy? If not, immediately change it into a positive one. In my previous video, I spoke of this process, but I'm going to repeat it here for those of you who have not seen it. And here are the 5 easy steps to incorporate into your daily life until it becomes a lifestyle. And then it's just so ingrained in you that you just heal. So a habit takes 63 days. So 3. Mom, I'm sorry, my mom just called. Okay, so where was I? A habit takes 3 cycles of 21 days. So 21 days, and you're starting to change. It's semi-permanent memory. Then eventually it becomes your default thinking pattern, and it is now a habit. So that's what you have to do. So okay, so the tips are as follows. So center yourself peacefully, and this activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So pay attention to warning signals, like I said, the anxiety, the sadness, the depression, the worry, and to get to the root cause of the signal. Once you get to the root cause of the signal, reconceptualize that thought to weaken the toxicity and rebuild it into a healthy, one that better manages the memory. So in order to move forward and change the way that you respond to that thought. So for example, forgiving someone for bullying you and causing you pain, you take that power back from that person and reprocess the memory. So I'll get to a video on forgiveness another time, but right now just reprocess the memory as just say that the bully was now that you know that you're older, hey, that bully was beaten at home. Maybe that bully was severely abused and they took it out on you, and you know what, and that can help you forgive that person. So that's reconceptualizing your past and redesigning it. So instead of holding that hatred and resentment, you're going to reconceptualize it in any which way. If it was your parents who caused you trauma, what you could do is, I don't know their situations, but say, hey, maybe that parent was mentally ill, and that she or he did the best that they can. And if they were a drug addict or something, say, well, that person, that parent was a drug addict and they had a disease, and you reconceptualize that, and you work on forgiving them. So in other words, you're changing the unhealthy thoughts, and but you acknowledge and embrace the warning signals, and it feels uncomfortable at first. But if you suppress these warning signals, the attached thought will fester like a wound. So become aware of the emotional warning signals, and then that's the first step. And then you're going to analyze and reflect on it. So how you analyze and reflect is kind of, these steps kind of like blend together. So you ask yourself questions like who, what, where, why, and the who, what, where, when, why is how you're going to get to the answer of where that anxiety is coming from. So I know I'm jumping around. So say that your trauma is giving you anxiety. So you're going to ask yourself, what is the root cause of this anxiety? So you're going to keep asking yourself questions. So until you get to the answer that you say, aha, so it might take a lot of questions, and and this is called a mental autopsy. So you're basically having a conversation with yourself, and you are getting to the bottom of the root cause, and you're bringing it into the conscious mind. So you're able to redesign that memory. So, and over weeks, not over weeks, it as you're doing it, it weakens the discomfort zones in your mind, and they start to just melt away. So it's amazing how this happens. I know I said that in the last video because it truly is amazing the way that this happens. So if you're the type of person that's used to just pushing your anxiety out of your head and acting like it doesn't exist and just carrying on, when you confront it and you start asking yourself questions about the root cause and what you can do about it, and if there's anything you can do about it at that moment, well, you'll see the anxiety just kind of melts away. So I'm going to give you another example. If you're easily irritated, ask why. The answer can be because you're exhausted. Then you ask yourself, well, why am I so exhausted? And then you could be because I worry too much. Well, then you ask yourself, well, why do I worry so much? And then, because there's always so much to do. Well, what is keeping you so busy? And spend about 5 minutes a day on asking yourself those questions. Otherwise, it could be mentally draining. So, when you get to where you found an answer to your question, you're going to take 2 or 3 minutes and you're going to write it down. So, like I said in the last video, I'm not going to use the word journal, but I'm going to definitely recommend that you write it down. So that is step 3. And step 4 doesn't occur in the first day that you do this, but step 4 is going back and reading what you wrote the day before. So, I cannot even explain the therapeutic benefits to journaling. There's no wrong way to journal. You just start writing, drawing, doing whatever. Amazing things happen in your brain as you start making these connections and getting these thoughts out of your head onto paper, and you become to understand more. So as you activate the area in your brain that allows the cognitive fluency to flow, you tend to come to an understanding of what is going on better. So again, that's step 3 and 4 combined. So 4 is you're going to go back and read the day before's, which it could be incredibly insightful, and you're going to look for triggers and make connections. And this will help prepare you for step 5. But Okay, so step 5 is my favorite step because this one is actually the action step, and this one I think is most helpful. So what you've discovered in the first few steps, you are going to prepare yourself now with something to tell yourself these when these thoughts come up, when these memories come up. So, for example, if you're constantly remembering bad choices that you've made throughout the day, when you find yourself doing this, you will have prepared an action that will confront that unhealthy thought, such as telling yourself, I choose to stop playing this movie over and over in my head, and I'm switching that movie off. And that is just one example. Another example is if you find it hard to accept that something is over and done in the past and you can't let it go. Tell yourself, I can't is a decision, so I choose to let it go, and I can let it go. And another example is if you find your thoughts cluttered in your mind, chaotically running through your mind. When this happens, you write down your thoughts and you sort them. You deal with them one at a time. But, oh wait, another example, because everybody is so different. So there's the root cause of people's trauma has so many different variables. So I just want to make sure that people get this. So say that you're fearful about talking to people. So what you're going to do is practice. So practice talking to yourself in front of the mirror at least 7 times a day. And remember the number 7. It's not an arbitrary number. There's science behind this. And each of these action steps you're going to have to commit to doing 7 times a day, because there's science behind that. So that's what's going to make this successful. So another example, that you constantly see the negative before the positive. So gather awareness of the negative and immediately think of the most positive version of that thought. And those are the 5 steps. So again, you want to do them. Make sure that they get done at least 7 times a day. If you have trouble staying on task, remember that there is an app that it's called the Switch app, and it's Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she offers it for free, or there's one that you could purchase. So there's one for free, so why not? And it'll keep you on task. The one that you purchase from her, it has more information about the brain and about studying the brain. And I mean, if that's your thing, if you want to learn more about it, I know I did, and I do both of the programs. I particularly like the one that I paid for the subscription, because I felt really curious about this whole subject, so I am pretty much obsessed with it. So I chose that one, but you don't have to, and you will start seeing results in about a couple days. But like research says, in 4 days you're high from starting a new program, just like going to the gym, is going to subside, and you're going to feel flat. And it's very important that you push through. By day 7, again, you'll feel better, and then you'll feel flat again a little bit, and then push through, and then it goes up and down. But just push through and make this a habit. Always make sure that you deal with your emotions. Always make sure that you are capturing your thoughts, and you are not letting anything in your mind that is negative and harmful. So just say you're constantly living in the past and thinking that you should have done different things differently. Well, overall, just what you could do is is just let those events go, and tell them that they're not going to control your future anymore. So tell your thoughts that you have learned from your past, and those mistakes have built character. So you're putting those behind you, and you're making a decision to move forward. Okay? I mean, there's just so many different examples, but those are the 5 steps. So again, I'm going to recap. So step 1 is gathering your thoughts. So gathering and paying attention to warning signals. The warning signals are the discomfort zones, worry, sadness, anxiety, guilt, shame, and then you're going to analyze and do a mental autopsy. So you're going to ask yourself questions. Why am I having this feeling? Where is it coming from? What is the reality behind this? Because a lot of times we tell ourselves fake things and we believe it, and that's what's in our unconscious minds is false beliefs. So like I said before, if you're telling yourself that you're not good enough, that's false. I mean, unless you're a pedophile or then it's not true. And if you have done bad things in the past, tomorrow's another day. You can move forward, and that's the great thing about life. You could always change, and you can always do better. Okay, I went on a bit of a tangent. Step 3, write it down. So when you get to the discovery, you're going to write down what you have just discovered, and that is for the purpose of finding triggers and making connections that you didn't even know were there, and getting it out of your head onto paper, which is always a good thing. So if you don't want to journal, I know people really hate it, then find a friend that you can share this with, but be consistent. So, and that friend has to really take on a big role here, because this is going to be an everyday thing. So I suggest just journaling, but the 5th step is the action step. So like I said, that's the most useful. So what you have discovered from your previous steps, you already know what your issue is, and you're going to prepare yourself what you're going to say when these thoughts and memories arise. So you're going to have a plan. It's always good to be proactive, and that is the basis of this program. So that's how you deal with trauma. And you really want to get to your default thought process, and you want to change it from negative to positive, and it can be done. It is possible, and we'll get to a video on mindsets, because mindsets are important too, because I'll just give you a quick preview. Never have the mindset that you can't. Okay? Get that out of your vocabulary. Get that, just never say I can't. So you can, and this program will help you work through your trauma, and will help you become a victor and not a victim. Okay, good luck, and if you have any questions, write them in the comment section. Thank you.